Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Teach, Sleep, Repeat. My name is Dylan.
And my name is Hayden.
We got our new voices on this week for the podcast because we've had such a good response to last week with Sophie.
We've made it.
And we don't have Sophie this week, so we need to make it more interesting with just us two again. I think people hate that it's just us two now. I've got imposter syndrome. Hey Hayden, how you doing?
Oh wow, nobody cares. What about you?
What about how you're doing?
Yeah, because we've had Sophie now, no one cares.
I know, right? It's like the double-edged sword there of getting an amazing guest on. It's like that people will look at this one this week and I just be like, It's just those two. Can't wait to hear them moan.
Yeah, good job we've got like a really quality guest again next week so people can continue to not care about us even more. That's good. Yeah.
This is just going to slowly evolve into a podcast where people are like, who? Don't know. But the person I like is actually on it this week, so I'll give it a listen.
That's all right for us. Still gets us that podcast money, doesn't it? Those customers.
I would love to clarify to everyone who maybe started listening later and stuff. We make absolutely no money from this podcast.
No, Dylan. The problem is you're stuck in the past. I'm thinking of us in 2 years' time when we look back at this episode and we're making podcast money.
Cool. Yeah. Get like a tenner and get, I don't know, what's it called? You always say on YouTube, Skillshare. Sponsored by Skillshare. Go on to Skillshare now and put in the code Teach, Sleep, Repeat Pod and get 4% off.
Sponsored by Brilliant.org. Who would ever do that? Who would ever do that?
Just for context, we actually got our first email asking us for a sponsorship, not on the podcast, on another of our endeavors with our tutoring. And it was for Brilliant. And we've just ignored it for 2 weeks.
No. I emailed. I replied to them. And they replied today, wanting to explore this option a bit more and sponsor our channel. So, but I think you're going to be right there.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
I reckon, because in my head, I'm like, oh, they're going to give us hundreds of pounds to make some YouTube videos and mention them as our sponsor. And I think you're right. They're going to be like, here's free access to our website for a month. That's what we get. It's going to be rubbish.
And that's modern day sponsorship, ladies and gentlemen. Huge corporations preying on the small, hoping they do the legwork for them. Nice one. Anyway.
If the podcast suddenly stops, it's because we're making that big YouTube money.
Oh, if only.
Dear.
Anyway, we're here again. It's another week. Just a quick reflection on last week. I had so many messages, which, jokes aside, was so nice to hear from people who said Sophie was just so lovely. And one of the best messages I got was from a fellow teacher. Obviously, if you're in the education world, you may have heard of Sophie because she does have quite a presence online and is quite helpful. But my favorite was from someone who said, I loved the episode of Sophie. And do you know what? She was just as lovely as I thought she was online. And I was like, yes, that is exactly the way to sum it up. That kind of person who's just so amazing and over the top nice and in such a lovely way. And then the idea of we sat and spoke to her for probably an hour and a half on our end, wasn't it, in total? And every single interaction with her we had, she was just the nicest person. So really positive experience, I thought, for our first guest.
I thought it was brilliant. Although she is still finding it really awkward, by the way. She messaged me yesterday and said she's still finding it really awkward that people are commenting on what she said in the podcast. She's just like, oh, this is cringe. We're used to it now, but she'll get used to it. She'll be on TV in no time.
She'll get used to it. Exactly. Well, actually, I think that she had a story about that, but maybe when she comes back on for the second podcast, she had something to... She didn't allude to it too much. I think she was very much waiting, wait and see when we're next on the pod. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we have already recorded our next interview with someone. We won't say who right now, but that's coming up next week, so very exciting. But Hayden, we've digressed here, I guess, because we wanted to reflect on last week, and the viewers like to know. They want to know. The viewers love to know because they're a bit weird. They like to watch us sit in a chair for an hour, so they definitely want to know. The listeners less so. But how was your week, pal?
I had. Do you know what? It's been a couple of weeks, really, hasn't it, since we've actually reflected? It's been a weird one because I got COVID for the first time. Finally.
Oh, thank God, and in the nicest way possible. Because you guys won't believe how much this guy went on about, I've never had COVID. I expected you to say it's a conspiracy. I've never had it. And I was just like,
Not that far. But I was a bit bummed out because I felt like I was one of the last remaining few that hadn't got it at school. But I've had it now. It was really annoying, actually. Coughed for 2 weeks straight. Really frustrating. And my eyes went red. So that was good fun. But other than that, though, back to the podcast. I did go to a writing moderation the other day for year 6. And when I went into the moderation, I sat down next to a familiar face, not someone I know well, but someone I've had interactions with in the past. And they were like, "Oh," they were a bit surprised and said, "I've listened to all of your podcast episodes." So that was really nice. So cheers, Helen.
Oh, that's lovely.
Cheers. Keep it up. just going to say...
this is the one she didn't listen to, mate. She not heard that.
Yeah, she, after sitting next to me, she decided she wasn't going to listen to any more podcast episodes. Realised I'm a complete fraud. But no, keep it up. Thank you.
Wow.
Appreciate that.
Have you noticed how now we've done the podcast and we have the amazing power to edit that real life conversations go away there smoothly?
Yeah, I'm just a mess.
Oh, wait, stop. Sorry. Ignore what I just said. I'll cut that out later. What I was saying was...
Yeah. Oh, good times. But other than that, in terms of in school, you're going to like this one. It's a maths game, obviously. Kids are obsessed. They're obsessed with blow dart maths. They just want me to shoot them with my big meter stick and make them...
Careful.
They pretend to pass out if they don't answer the question in 3 seconds. But this time they were like, could you make it a farting stick instead of a blow dart stick? I was like, no, kids, this is ridiculous. You know, like, they're being really immature. They were laughing at the idea of me like pretending to fart down it.
That's really immature.
Really immature.
I mean,
okay?
the blow dart one. I mean, where's the line? Obviously.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, do you really think I'm gonna like that embarrass myself that much? Like pretend to fart down a meter stick and like instead of blowing, it's already bad enough blowing down it. 10 seconds in, I was farting down that stick. It was hilarious.
Oh, hey, dude.
Pretending, obviously, just to make them laugh.
All right. That's important.
Just to make them laugh. It wasn't really fun. That'd be gross. But I did it one time as a joke, and then they were like, "That's so funny." So I just wanted to let you know that's how low I've gone.
These are the depths that we go to, guys, to get our children to learn their times tables.
My TA wasn't in the room. Wasn't in the room.
Oh no, of course not. Of course not. I don't know if anyone kind of wandered round, you would very quickly, I'm sure, pretend that you were measuring something on the wall.
Well, she came back the next day. She wasn't in my room that day. She had something else to do. Came in the next day, and the kids were like, "Oh, can we do that thing again?" I was like, don't embarrass me in front of, like, I could do it when it's just me, but don't embarrass me in front of other adults. Come on.
Oh dear. It's funny you should mention times tables though, because down in year 4 this week is the multiplication times table check that is going on. And for anyone unfamiliar with that, the government introduced it. I couldn't believe this, by the way. This was announced in like 2018 or like way before COVID.
Yeah, it was long ago.
But obviously, because of the trial run years and COVID itself, it didn't feel like it's really kicked in until last year, I felt. So we did it last year. We did it again this year. And I must say, again, for anyone who doesn't know, it's just a very simple check on the times table. It's not a formal test. It's on the iPad. You get 6 seconds per question, and they're completely random times table questions. And they get 25 of them, and the score is recorded. The school get a copy of the score. It gets sent home to parents. And the idea is that it's just a bit of accountability, I suppose, for year 5 and 6, because the government expect children in year 4 to be able to learn all their times tables by the end of year 4. Now, of course, that doesn't always happen. Lots of children do, lots of children don't. And the times table check's just designed as a bit of accountability. And I've got to say, Hayden, we're the first, aren't we, to sit here and say, and slate something that the government bring in and say, they're not in the classroom, what a load of rubbish. I actually think that this is one of the better things that they've introduced. And I think it's really useful. I don't know what your opinion is.
Yeah, I don't see the downside of it at all. I think the pressure is not really on because it's actively not. It doesn't go on a league table. Do you know what I mean? It is literally for the school, and they made that really clear. This is for you to know where your kids are, because the expectation is that they have learned these by the end of the year. So use the data as you will, and let the parents know if they're behind or not. You know, I think it's a very good thing as well, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing. I, as the teacher administrating it, felt that there was absolutely no pressure on the children. Even those children who struggled with the 6 second time lapse. That's the biggest thing I think that was going to cause the most problem, because a lot of children I teach kind of have learnt their times tables. They know strategies. They can kind of count up at least if they don't know the times table immediately. But those kind of, it's to kind of wean out those strategies of, well, do you have to still sit there and go 6, 12, 18, 24, trying to get all the way up to 6 times 9? Or can you very quickly work out 6 times 10 and kind of work backwards? Do you have those strategies? And I felt that's where a lot of children will fall down on this test. But I think there's no pressure there on me as the teacher, and therefore no pressure on me to pass it on to the children. It is just simply where they're at. And I actually think it has been a very successful week, actually.
Yeah, nice. Did you have any interesting stories about your week, or just that one? Oh, no, it's fine. Just that one. That's absolutely fine. It's not a problem. I just wondered for the viewers and listeners. No, I'm just joking.
That's fine. No, that's fine. I've actually got an interesting one.
Go on, then.
This has really got to live up to the hype now, because it's actually an average story, but you've triggered me, Aidan, so I'm going to give you something that I think's a bit more interesting. We were doing an English lesson today, and it was all about starting off sentences with adverbials of time because we're doing explanation text and how to do certain tasks and things. And the idea was firstly after a few minutes, and then the idea of putting a comma and just making here we go.
Please keep going.
I'm getting a taste of my own medicine here. Anyway, it was about chickens. It's very random. It was about chickens and laying eggs.
Now you got me.
One of my children, there we go. One of my children put their hand up and said, we were talking about discussion about where the comma should go in a sentence, because it was something like where the comma could go after the first word, but actually the clause carries on for a little bit. Very technical speak for anyone at home. I can't think of the example right now. It was like after comma, you could just carry on. But this was after a few days in an incubation, comma, and we were just discussing where that goes. Anyway, so when you're having a really deep conversation as a teacher and you're trying to draw out, all this interesting questioning and these ideas from the children. So, okay, yeah, where do you think it might go? Here, because that, okay, interesting. Has anyone else got any other ideas? It could go there in some sentences, but why is it not going there in this one? What's going on? Yes. And I pointed to one of my lads and he went, I've got something. What came first, the chicken or the egg?
Oh, no. I bet that completely distracted everyone.
Right. Okay, yeah. Everyone's immediately like, it's the chicken, it's the egg. and it's just the way he was like, I've got an interesting one, as if like no one's ever heard this question before. I was thinking, just thinking the other day, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And I went, just to say one, to prompt him, I went, chicken. And he went, nope. As if he had the answer. I was like, oh, all right, okay. Sorry, you solved this question, have you?
Yeah.
And he goes, it's the egg. And I was like, okay, well, who laid the egg? No one. Right? Where did it come from? I don't know. Evolved from a dinosaur or something. I was okay.
Brilliant. Completely derailed your lesson.
That chain of evolution from, amoeba, fish, dinosaur, egg, chicken.
Classic. Well, speaking of egg, you give me a bit of a flashback to today, because I was walking across the playground, heading towards my classroom, and definitely heard some child in the distance behind me say, oh, look, it's Eggman. So, and I thought, I can't be bothered to deal with this. I can't be bothered. I've seen my head. They've gone, it's Eggman. And I'm letting it fly,
Are they wrong though?
That's what I thought. That's why I left it. Walked off. Can't believe it.
What little do you know that walking behind you was literally Eggman, Humpty Dumpty.
It's me. It's my ego talking here. Oh, talking about me again. It's Eggman. Oh, yeah, classic. Here
Humpty Dumpty on the wall. These kids are just obsessed with me.
After I sat down at that moderation, I realised there was a famous podcaster right next to me. Wasn't talking to me. Oh, God. Me, yeah, I know.
Mr. P. It was Mr. P. I've listened to all your podcasts. Oh, me.
Oh. Oh dear. Oh.
Anyway, that was fun. I hope that was as good for the listeners as it was for me, because I thoroughly enjoyed that. But I can imagine on the other end that was boring as
Oh, we got to keep this in, Dylan, and just bleep out the word. We got to keep it in and bleep out the word.
I've not done that in so long.
Oh, we don't swear on this podcast, guys.
You have no idea what I said. You have no idea what was behind that bleep, ladies and gentlemen.
It starts with F and it rhymes with chicken.
Anyway, I think we should swiftly move on before we get in trouble.
That's funny. Right, before we get into the meaty stuff of today's episode, Dylan, I've got a really quick toxic classroom. What do we call it? Toxic from the
clearly it's been a while because you can't remember.
Toxic thing.
I think we literally just called it toxic story. I don't. Listen, our fans will know.
Yeah,
our fans will know.
Yeah,
your mate from the pod, your mate from the moderation, she'll know. She'll be telling us right now.
Just text me. Toxicity in schools. That's what I'm going to call it right now.
Oh, that's catchy.
Just about as catchy as our handles. And if you want to check us out on social media, Dylan's going to tell you right now where to find us.
teachsleeprepeatpod at gmail.com. Teach Sleep Repeat Podcast on Instagram. Teach SR Podcast on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't even know. How are you guys meant to find us? Anyway, toxic schools.
Yeah, okay.
Toxic.
So,
do you know what? Very quickly, can I just say that is now our number one listened to podcast, that episode 5.
Is it?
When schools become toxic. Yeah, because a lot of people resonated with a lot of people. And here's another slice of the action, Hayden.
Yeah, nice one. So it was recently half term. We had an extra long half term, and I saw this over the half term and saved it for this episode. So this is what it says. Anonymous post. Today's my partner's birthday. We'd planned to go out for the day. He's gone out for the day, but by himself because I just have too much work to do. I've already spent 4 full days this half term writing reports and planning. I've got an extra day now to do data analysis and some sort of project to do. And there's an inset later in the term where I've got to deliver training on a subject that I don't know anything about. Classic, by the way. So I've got to train myself and then design and deliver the training that I've got to do. I've got no extra release time for this whatsoever. Why do we have to do all this on our own time? I hate this. I feel like the worst person in the world. No point to this post, really. Just a vent. And to the people who resigned this week, you made a good decision. You never missed a birthday or important family occasion again. So this person was rattled, well annoyed, and I don't blame them. They spent the whole half term working, like solid days by the looks of it, and then missed an important event. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I'm trying to, not let my blood pressure go through the roof on this podcast anymore. I'm gonna try to be more level-headed here and maybe come back with I completely sympathise with this person, but like almost like a riposte, let's say. What this is, I genuinely would love to know this, and I'm not saying that she is or he has made this up, but what on earth was being planned for 4 whole days in a row? I think like a lot of time, I know I'm the same. And so I try not to moan too much when this happens or say this when it happens. It might take me, let's say 2 days to get a history unit planned, right? Or let's say 3 days even. And that would mean that I start on the Monday and it gets finished on the Wednesday. But by no means do I spend 8 hours each day constantly planning, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I guess that depends on it's like our school though, isn't it? Because we're a bigger school. If we think about someone like Sophie from last week, Imagine you had history to do, which took you 2 days, but you also had geography and science and RE and then maths and English.
Yeah, no.
All from scratch.
My point here is that, I might go for breakfast on the Monday, come back at 12, do 2 hours work, then run off to do something else, and then do another hour's work later. And it's actually 3 hours of work. But I've managed to have a day apart from that. Now, if it's 4 solid days of planning, then I don't understand that whatsoever, because is that just happening every half term so you're getting ahead for the whole term ahead? Because you can't sustain that throughout every single week in term because you're literally at work. I'm just saying I am interested to like dive deeper into these things, because that sounds crazy. Like that's almost so crazy that it's gone past the point where I'm like, well, can you explain that? Because I can't even fathom that much.
We did
work.
say 4 full days this half term writing reports and planning, to be fair. So I imagine a big bulk of that 4 days was report writing. I don't know.
And you know what? As you know, Hayden, we're going to come on to this discussion in a lot more deeply in our big chunk of this episode. But I think that between term 5 and 6, that half term, from a lot of teachers' point of view, is completely written off. Like there is, I don't know any teachers really who ever plan to really do anything in that term because of the looming reports, and it takes up such a big chunk of time in that kind of week off. I would say in general that is crazy. It's frustrating, isn't it, when workload gets to that point? And the reason I'm interested in like diving into more about the intricacies of that is because I want to find a solution. We've said this before a million times, haven't we, Hayden?
Yeah.
When someone comes to us with a problem, sometimes they just want empathy and a shoulder to cry on, maybe, or like just someone to say, "Oh, that must be difficult." Whereas I know we're very much learning to do that. But my first thought is always, "Can I solve this problem? Okay, break it down for me exactly." Like what on earth is going on where you've got to do that much work in your week off? Because it completely goes against what everyone says about teaching. Why do you get all that time off? It was like, well, this person doesn't. Clearly.
I missed your partner's birthday. Like literally not gone out to do the events the things you'd planned for that day of your partner's birthday in a half-term week. Like it's the literal week off. This post I think was on a Sunday, by the way, so it was the last day of the half-term. They're obviously just like thinking, this is my last day. I have to get this work done. But I don't know about you, but I just. Maybe it just says something about me. No way. I just wouldn't do it. I'd be like, cool, that work's not getting done then. Don't care. I'm going out for the day. It's my partner's birthday. I'm not missing it. So if someone moans about not getting the work, tough. I'll get it another week. Like that's genuinely my attitude towards that, but maybe that's not the same for everybody.
I don't know. I think there's like not even a middle ground. There's a ground way closer to what you are, which is where most people should be. But I'd just be interested in knowing the ins and outs of that, because I want to know what had to be planned for 4 full days. I guess it's reports as well, like you're saying. It is frustrating, but I'm not going to... My personal view on this, and it's like against what I always say, I suppose, and I think it probably helps that our school, we have an extra week off in this time, and I can kind of say, well, that's extra to everyone because we put our insets together. I can justify spending a lot of time on work on that week because that makes more sense. I'm getting paid basically for those inset days. But I think on the whole of the 13 weeks off that we get, I don't mind having to cordon off 2 or 3 weeks of that in total to be doing work personally.
I don't know. Yeah, I think that's a weird one because I think I do. I think I do mind. I'm like, nah, I want all 13 weeks of them. I don't like the idea that in any capacity that is even remotely hinted at the expectation of me working in those weeks off. I get it. Like, I actually don't mind it. I know what you're saying. Like, I don't mind doing a couple of weeks, but I don't agree with it, if that makes sense.
So what do you, because this is my opinion on this. This is really interesting now because finally we're finding something we might disagree a bit on. When it comes to holidays, it's built in that we get 13 weeks off, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's because that is the reason why, partly in a less like, let's just say, suspicious view of the establishment saying that we have to do work outside of our working hours, right? I think that's part of the balance there of that being in our contract of, okay, you work 195 days a year and you have this time from whenever directed time, but you have to do some work outside of it to meet the standard of the job. To me, that is a fair assumption that we'll be using a fair chunk of that 13 weeks off to counterbalance that. I don't think it should be an unhealthy amount. And the problem comes where there's no set amount. Some people might say 3/4, some people might say 1/4, half. There's no set healthy amount there. But from my perspective, I'm willing to say some of those 13 weeks will be put towards that part of that contract that I agreed to. Yeah. I think it becomes unhealthy when it's the weekly grind doing work every single Sunday.
Yeah.
That balance is really important. And I think there is no balance, which is the problem. But I think doing some work and a significant chunk of work outside of school is actually acceptable. I just think this scale's gone way too far to
Yeah, you've kind of said my counter argument sort of towards the end of your point, really, which was literally just going to be, I do get that, but the reality is that, whatever you said, let's say we accept that maybe like 3 weeks of those 13 weeks is like an acceptable amount. It's like I'm already doing those 3 extra weeks in my free time on weekends and evenings within term time anyway. So when it gets to the holidays, it's like, cool, you already owe me those 3 weeks because I've literally done them on top of the directed time that I'm supposed to do anyway. So that's kind of why I'm just like, nah, I want all 13 weeks. I think we worked out in a different episode, I can't remember what the hours were, but I'm sure we worked out that the hours we do, even with the whole 13 weeks off, it still adds up to around about, if not a bit more than the average working hours of a job in a year anyway. And that was, I can't remember what we based it on. If we based it on the for we do a few like hours on the weekend, or whether we just did it on like a 9 to 5 kind of hours. I can't remember.
Yeah. The fact was, for anyone who missed the episode, the amount of hours we put into the job just from doing the job, as in we get into school like 7:30. Like we don't get into school at 9. We get into school at 7:30. Yeah. We leave at about 5. Add up all of those times, all of those clubs we might have to do, all of the parents' evenings. We left out the whole planning. So like planning wasn't in that time. Right, so any extra planning we do was on top of a full-time job. And I think actually we agree on the basics here. Like I think that it's acceptable to do some work in that time. But I also completely agree that the fact we do so much work every single week extra does kind of foster that environment of, okay, well, where's this line then?
That's the broken
bit. Line where this is acceptable? Yeah,
that's the bit. Because I think I agree. In the summer holidays, I think it's acceptable that I'll do a week of work in preparation before September because it's a brand new year. Of course I need to be prepared. I can't go in day one with these new kids and know nothing about them, have nothing planned. So I do think it's acceptable that I do some work before that. I just don't think it's acceptable that I then work every weekend and evening in that term. It's kind of like one of them needs to go, and it should probably be the one that's impacting us on like a daily basis, not the one where actually you've had 5 weeks off to relax. Now you're ready to do some work. That I get it. That's probably the one that should stay, if anything, because there is a lot of holiday.
Yeah, because again, if you think about it, it's 6 separate chunks of holiday, right? Or have I got that wrong, or is it 7? It must be 7, mustn't it? So summer, half term 1, Christmas, half term, Easter, half term.
And summer again. No, it's 6.
Summer again. So 6. Yeah, so 6. And if you think about a regular job, I bet most people don't get 6 chunks off work every week. No. Every year, sorry. No. So like, for example, the overall point I guess I'm making here is that when it comes to term 5, 6, and we have this, need to do reports, I think it's widely accepted that, okay, that week, bit of a write-off, get the reports done, get the planning done, but then I've got 6 weeks at the end of this chunk. And it ends up being that you work for 12, 13 weeks in a row, which is a slog in teaching. We know that. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
But then you get 5 weeks off, before you've got to do that week of work before you go back, like you said. There's just a middle ground, and we're nowhere near that middle ground.
No.
Absolutely. And I completely sympathize with this person because I'm almost playing devil's advocate here of suggesting that it's acceptable. But it's acceptable in isolation. It's not acceptable in the reality of what we're doing. I completely agree.
Yeah. And also my last point on this is just that, and I always find this hard to grasp. Like, I don't like this. It's just how unregulated the system is. I don't like the fact that it is genuinely a gamble as to what school you end up getting a job in, as to how much of your life will just be taken up by it. And that's so true. Like, I don't work in that person's school. I didn't spend 5 days working over the half term. Got paid exactly the same though. Assuming that it's just pretend we're on the same pay point in our scale. Cool, there you go. You just didn't get paid to do 5 days work that I didn't do. So bad luck. Do you know what I mean? Like, what point? That's so ridiculous that's just the state that it's in. Oh, bad luck. Imagine going to Tesco and then in like one store you work twice the hours for the same money as another store. It's like, it's not going to happen. Like, it's regulated completely so that it's fair across. Like, the trade is fair.
I'll come back on that really quick because we both worked in a supermarket and I completely agree with you. But there is always imbalances even in jobs like that, because I worked at Asda and I very quickly realized that I could work as hard as possible and get paid the same as someone who did nothing for their whole shift. And there was that imbalance in that job as well, where I was like, wait, I'm breaking my backside here to get this, get these 6 cages out on the shop floor. Someone's done 1 cage in the same time, has gone chatting with someone for an hour. We got the same pay packet at the end, and that inequality kind of drives that resentment, doesn't it? And that's where we're at with teaching right now.
At least that's the same inequality in every job.
Yeah, no, but the point I'm making, I suppose, is that I felt that resentment there as well in that respect. I don't think that resentment for, between people doing the same job is something that's exclusive to teaching. I just think it's a completely different environment where, it affects you even more. Because like you said, that's like on the job, how hard you work in. This is like, cool, do I need to literally plow extra hours in? And I think the one thing that's transformed for me a lot, and you maybe could say your opinion on this afterwards, is the hours and hours extra where it feels like you're not getting paid. Like the option is, okay, I could not do this and it would just get done at another point, or I could put 3 hours into this, unit of work, or half an hour. And now I'm just like, cool, that 2.5 hours, if I was paid, if our pay had been kept up with, the rate that it was 20 years ago, where it was like a livable wage for you and your partner, like you could literally raise a family on a teacher's salary. Now you're scraping to buy a house still. And it's just like, cool, I'm not in the position where I feel like I want to accept that. So I'm not going to do it anymore. And, it's a tough job, and lots of people have tough jobs and lots of people are on less money. But it's irrelevant to me because I'm like, cool, well, why should I put in that extra 5 hours a week? Am I a chump? Like, it was nice when I was passionate, yes. But am I a chump now?
I find that people earlier in their career, just in general, I'm just generalizing now, it's not always true, but generally, people earlier in their career in teaching do put that hard slog in. They do the serious hours. I remember doing it. We both did it. We were exactly the same. And I think I was in my first or second year and I spoke to my deputy head at the time because I was just getting stressed. Like, I couldn't keep up with the amount of work that I was putting myself under as well. And that's really important because I was trying to do everything at 110%. Like, everything had to be incredible. All of my lessons took me 2 hours to plan per lesson. Everything I was marking was like marked to the nth degree. Everything was just over the top. And I was like, cool, this is completely unmanageable. Like, I don't understand how am I supposed to do this job like really well, which I want to do. And I just sort of broke down to my deputy head at the time. And he was just like, yeah, just don't do it. And he wasn't being like, oh yeah, just don't do it, mate, whatever. He was being really genuine. And I was sort of like, this is my deputy head, like someone I expect to tell me to get everything done properly. And he was like, don't do it. And I was like, but I need to get this done and this done. I've got all these maths things to sort out as well now that I've just been chucked on top of me and I've still got that to mark. He's like, don't do it. And I was like, well, I can't just not do it. He was like, yeah, you can. And if someone really needs it, they'll email you again for it. And then you can do it. And at the time, I didn't really understand, but it changed my life really thinking about it. It resonated with me a lot over the years because I was like, yeah, do you know what? It's so true. Everyone's so urgent. Everyone needs things urgently done for them. and everyone, last minute goes, oh, this needs to be done now. Can you do this report for me because I've got this meeting tomorrow? No. What are you going to do? Honestly, it's so bad, but it's like, yeah cool, okay, no, I'll go home.
Power, yeah, I agree. It's the power of prioritization. And it's hilarious because we have mocked this like endlessly before and say, oh, just go home. Well, I've got to mark it. It's on the policy. I'll get into trouble otherwise. I think like what you're saying is more of a mindset shift rather than an individual basis of, well, just don't mark. No one's saying that to you, are they?
Not that.
It's a very generic kind of like a mindful state to be in the job, which is it's okay to not get everything done in the time frame that you've self-imposed on yourself. And that kind of self-imposition, are you going to let some people down sometimes? Maybe, in a certain respect, because someone might need something from you where, okay, fair enough, but that means I need to work until 8 tonight. And I'm going to say no, because I'm going to put myself first before that person. That person may feel let down, may have not had something from you, but, maybe next time that person will ask it from you 2 days early, and give you a chance to do it. Or think about, okay, I need this from this person. How can I get it from them without, damaging their health or their mindset? And I think this is a really powerful thing for especially leaders to do. And I know we're not school leaders, we lead a subject, we lead maths, right? But there's little things that I'm quite mindful of is not taking advantage of the people who will say yes in those situations. Because although we're very much of the mindset of, just don't do it. We know, don't we, Hayden, a lot of teachers who are so lovely and put everything into this job still, and will not say no, and will impose work on themselves to deadlines they've set themselves, and end up working almost every evening because they want to get this done, want to get that done. And I think what leaders need to do is kind of step in sometimes and say, look, take a break. We're not going to expect this from you. I'm actively saying, don't do this thing that you've planned to do for 2 hours every night this week because you want to get it done by next week. Let's shift this target into next term. Have a break. I expect you to only get these things done. Which then I think if leaders take that active step, I think people will be less anxious and feel like they've got to go over and above every single week at the detriment of their own stress and their health. I think that's a really powerful thing people can do.
I know a lot of teachers right now who honestly work every evening of the week, genuinely work every single evening of the week, and usually half a day or a day at the weekend as well. So I really hope things get better for those people. And I do agree that it has to be top down. It has to be. Not everyone is going to be like, nah, I'm not doing it. My life is, not everyone is going to be comfortable with actively knowing that actually they're just going to let someone down. It's like, yeah, you gave me this deadline, but cool. I've got 7 other jobs that you've also given me. So I'm only doing 3 of them because that's all I can do in this time. So tough. Not everyone's going to have that confidence to do that. So, leaders, come on. We need to foster a better workplace for people to feel less anxious, less overworked.
Well, this kind of evolved into a little chat there, didn't it? That felt really good. I think what we're going to do then, because it leads perfectly on to a raging debate at the minute, education-wise, I think that we, Hayden, are going to play the little jingle, and you're going to go and get a cup of tea in the 3 seconds.
Same joke.
Going to say the same joke for 6 weeks in a row because that's our personality. We become obsessed with something, get bored of it, and then we'll replace it with something in a few weeks. Diagnose us as you will, but I'll see you again in 4 seconds. In the last couple of weeks, because of reports and the huge job teachers have to produce them, there's been a bit of a raging debate because there's also been a huge development in technology. And now, Hayden, we're talking about AI. What does AI stand for, Hayden?
Artificial intelligence, of course.
I really hoped within like 2 seconds on the spot you'd come up with something funny. But no, you're right. Artificial intelligence. And anyone who has been online, I'm sure, has seen something about it. We've got Photoshop now has AI where you can generate the rest of a photo. It can fix it for you automatically. And the idea is that artificial intelligence is kind of the next step, isn't it, in technology? It's something that learns by itself and kind of develops by itself. And it's therefore quite controversial, especially because you may have seen in the news, if you read, for example, on BBC Online, there's been a few articles in the last few weeks of the founders of various AI systems almost warning the world that this could get out of hand, very quickly. These bots learn exponentially. They're going to become super intelligent, super quick, and they kind of were, canvassing for a bit of a pause on the development of the technology as a whole. Now, that's a whole nother debate, whether, AI in general is going to take over the world or not. But where Hayden and I have found something really interesting is an entire debate around report writing and different AI tools that we have available to us now. So, Hayden, do you want to kick us off and just kind of summarize what is the debate and what's the general consensus been?
Yeah, sure. So I will just clarify as well. The AI that we're talking about is essentially a glorified and very, very, very good language model. That's what it is. It's really, really good at producing pieces of text. So there's one that's been created, the most sort of popular teaching related one right now. I'm going to read out a little anonymous post actually for you because this kind of summarizes the debate perfectly. Someone put this on in a Facebook group anonymously. They put, thoughts on AI generated report comments, ... I've looked at TeachMate AI from Mr. P and it looks fantastic. Had a very brief chat with my head teacher and have been told that it is both morally and ethically wrong to use AI for anything in school. This person has put, I personally do not agree with this as I see it as a way of saving valuable time. What are people's thoughts? Can you tell if a report has been written by a teacher or AI if it uses prompts that are input by the teacher? And that sparked a really, really big discussion. And that's essentially captures, I think, the debate in hand here is it acceptable to use AI to help you write reports?
Yes. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you again next. Now, I think, I'm no stranger to an opinion, Hayden. I think that it is absolutely fine. I think that there is no problem morally or ethically. And I do think that someone imposing that view on someone else is being quite dramatic. And I think if the head had said that to me, if I'd gone in and asked about it, then firstly, I wouldn't have asked. I would have just made them and then they would never have known. And secondly, if they said it to me, I'd say, cool, okay, so do I get time to write these bespokely then? And see what they say. I'd also ask them, Hayden, can I use a comment bank? Because very common. I had it in secondary school as well. I literally had a report once which had someone else's name in it where they'd copied in a comment and forgot to swap the name. Very common strategy when it comes to writing reports. I think there's a whole host of reasons. But yeah, we did a poll, didn't we, Hayden?
Yes.
On a teaching.
So
blog.
you started a poll. There's kind of two elements to this because I sort of jumped in afterwards as well because I wanted more information. So you did a poll basically saying, hey, look, everyone in this big teacher group, is it acceptable to use ChatGPT, which is a very popular AI language model at the moment, to write reports? And you did specify, to be fair, and you did say there would be specific inputs for the child from the teacher, but the AI would generate the actual paragraph for you. And the data that we got from that, at least from when I last looked at it, was 9% of people said, of course, it's okay to use AI, just flat okay. 86% of people on your poll said yes, but with editing / specific input for each child, which makes sense. I think that's what everyone's doing anyway. And then 5% of people just put flat out should not be used. So I then wanted to get more information from these people. So I put a post up saying, would anyone be be available to just chat basically and let me know why you think it's not acceptable to use AI?
Yeah, this is hilarious because I feel like we're going back to our roots here. We're going back to episode 1 where we did a bit of role play about the strikes because we both obviously thought striking was the right action to take. So we had to kind of make up these characters, didn't we?
Yeah, true.
So I think first thing I want to say before you carry on, Hayden, is just point people in the direction of the fact that over 90% of people, overwhelmingly, and there were over 400 votes in this poll, saying that they think it's acceptable to use it as a tool, which I'm glad of. But yeah, I'm very interested to hear then those people who are against AI, what their views were, what their reasons were as to say, not only is it not okay, or not only will I not use it, but I don't think anyone should use it. I think that's quite a big jump then. Okay,
well, I actually had a really nice conversation with someone who said they wouldn't mind if I sort of talked about this. So I'm just going to read off a little bit, just paraphrase some of their answers, if that's all right, and you can kind of maybe come back at them with your thoughts. So this person said, and they're really lovely, by the way, really polite, and they said, look, I know maybe I'm a bit of a dinosaur, but this is just my opinion on things. And their overarching point really was, in primary school, we spend so much time with these children on a personal level. In some cases, like even more time than they do with their parents in those sort of personal situations. And you see hundreds of personal anecdotes across the year. And she feels it is part of her job, it is part of her role to then kind of collate and share some of those beautiful memories and anecdotes that have happened across the year that their parents didn't get to be a part of, with the parents via parents' evenings, but also written reports. And they were really, really passionate about this idea that the comments should be super personal and include really little things about that child that an AI would never be able to generate from any prompt, because they're because they're anecdotes, because they're stories, they're moments that actually happened in the year, not just generic like did well in this, can't do this. So that's the first point I want to make.
Yeah, it's interesting because to me, I guess this comes down to AI as a generated prompt is as good as what you put into it. And I don't think that using AI is what some people see it as like a just get out of jail free card. Like you can just generate a report in 3 minutes, because I absolutely don't think that that's possible using AI, because you've got to be really specific. You've got to write individual prompts for every single child, put in 5, 6, 7, 8 bullet points. One of them could be the anecdote. And what I found was really powerful was for the generic way of wording things, so that you don't word it in the same way every single child that behaves in a similar situation. I thought that, ChatGPT was a really good way of kind of generating new ways of getting things across in a very formal manner that's properly, written in a way that's suitable for a report. But then once it's generated, copying it into Word, diving in and adding those anecdotes and those little tiny things in there without having to worry about how to word something and how for it to flow. I think they're two separate things. I don't necessarily think AI equals not personal. I think the way you use it as a tool is going to be really important.
I had another really, really good counter argument that I'm going to come to in a minute. So I'm not going to share it with you just yet, but it was the only one really that made me go, ooh, when something makes you doubt yourself a bit. But just staying on the point that you were just mentioning for a minute, I played around with specifically that Teach Me AI because I saw it was really popular and I just wanted to see what it was all about. Obviously, you've got ChatGPT as well, which is a free model to use. And I because obviously we were writing our report, so I had to play around with it as well just to see, because my gut feeling was actually that it's not going to be very good. I was thinking it's probably going to be like horribly impersonal, not written very well, to the point where you have to edit it anyway and spend just as much time on it. But I'll be honest, I think it took me 25% of the time as normal, and I genuinely think my comments were better. And I'll just reiterate a point you made. Because I'm a human being under a time constraint, I don't care how good your school is, you're always going to be under a time constraint for reports. It is natural that you're going to repeat the same comments and phrases for various children once you've written, you're writing the same report format 32 times potentially. You're going to start using the same phrases. You're just not going to think of 32 different ways. Whereas the AI was really good at creating unique sentences and paragraphs per child based on my prompts. And I've since then, I have put in some prompts to Teach My AI, and I've just made it up because obviously I don't want to share a real report with you, but I would like to share with you a report that just before this podcast, I got the AI to write for you. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've got two examples. They both took less than 30 seconds to completely finish, right? And then I'm going to make one final point afterwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you what I wrote in to the AI, and then I'm going to share with you what came out the other end. Okay.
Okay. So this will be interesting to see, like, the amount you've input here, because I think some people are worried and saying, oh, Jessie's a lovely girl, works hard, could improve next year by just paying attention more and hoping that it comes out with 200 words. I don't think that's what happens.
I'll show you. So this one was a maths comment. So I just made up a maths comment. Obviously I used your name, and all I typed in the strengths box, and it doesn't have to be like well worded. It's basically bullet points. You just type in your thoughts. I put in the strengths box, I put problem solving, thinking mathematically, longevity, written calculations and methods, was good at making 3D models. I was trying to think of like maybe an actual thing that child was good at doing, particular thing. And needs improvement, I put reading the time. And I asked it to write me a really short one, a 90-word report. So just one paragraph. And this is what it wrote. And I haven't edited this, so you can give me your honest opinions. Dylan has displayed exceptional problem-solving skills throughout the term and is able to think mathematically to arrive at practical solutions. His longevity in the subject matter is impressive, and he has excelled in written calculations and methods. Dylan has also demonstrated a flair for creating three-dimensional models, showcasing his creativity in the process. However, it is noted that Dylan needs to work on reading the time, as this has been an area of weakness for him. Overall, Dylan has made significant progress this term and has proven himself to be a diligent and dedicated student.
Yeah, I mean, so my initial reaction to that is there's nothing in there that you haven't personally written. There's nothing in there that the AI is magically made up about this child where suddenly it's now an inaccurate report. It's a very useful report, exactly what you put in, just composed in a way that's much more maybe formal than we could have written with less effort. I mean, for the time saved, are we really saying that it's important as teachers that the adult knows that we composed it ourselves? We're signing off on what's going into the AI. We're literally putting the exact stories in. You could have had a lovely story there, like that woman or man said about the the individual stories from each person. That could have been a lesson you remember, and they made this unbelievable 3D model and went off and made their own net, and it's this magic story you want to share. And if you really wanted to share it, then cool. 30 seconds after that was generated, if you thought that wasn't personal enough, spend 2 minutes writing a bit of an extension on that sentence.
I agree.
It's as personal as you want it to be. I don't think the personable aspect of the report is an argument against it that I really accept, to be honest.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was actually about to say the beauty of the time save in that the fact that took me 30 seconds to get to that point means that now, if I have taken notes, because I'm one of those teachers that has taken notes and wants to get the anecdotes in, it will take me like a minute or two to put the anecdote in rather than 10 minutes to create the whole, craft the whole paragraph myself, weaving the anecdote into a point which I feel is appropriate. So I think people are missing a trick, is what I want to say here. I think people are way too focused on these extreme ideas of, well, it's either A, you write this beautifully bespoke report that you could spend 3 hours writing per child, and it's the most amazing thing that anyone's ever read ever. Or B, you could tell AI 6 things that a child can do, and it will write this really generic, impersonal thing for you. And it's like, what? Do you know what? Neither of those are really an acceptable reality. We cannot expect people to spend their time on making reports this amazing, as great as that would be objectively. And equally, anyone using AI, I'm sure, is still inputting enough into the AI that it's not a complete impersonal piece of drivel. It's just saving them time.
And I'm not being funny. Who do we think we are as teachers that we're going to be able to craft this unbelievably written, beautiful paragraph? I'm sorry, it's not realistic. After 3 hours of sat there writing, do you think it's going to be something out of a beautiful novel? I honestly don't think that we could compose something better, as in better quality written in terms of grammatical and formality, than the AI bot has. The only difference we can have is that individual flair of a specific bespoke story that we want to get across in a way that we remember it. Then go in and edit it afterwards. I think you're absolutely right. There's what's the point in being the extreme here?
Well, interestingly, to come back completely on the first point you made there about who are we to create this paragraph, one of the points someone gave me on that thread that I put out there was it literally, she said, it's insulting the idea that we're trained professionals, we've been at university for 3 years and write at degree level, to think that we can't write these paragraphs ourselves and we have to rely on AI to do it for us.
No. We don't rely. We don't rely on it. I'm pretty sure I could sit there, couldn't I? It's not insulting. It's not insulting to say that a computer is more able to access synonyms faster than you. Is it insulting when we have to Google something when actually, it's insulting to suggest that I couldn't go and find a book in the local library and find the answer? Well, no, of course you can, but it's called time saving. It's not an insult to suggest that Googling something is ridiculous. It's part of the technological advances of the time. We are intelligent teachers who are good at pedagogy, your favorite word. I'm sorry, but when did the biggest part of our job become composing amazing paragraphs to send to parents? Of course we know how to do it. I know how to do percentages. I don't not use a calculator. Is it wrong to use a calculator? How insulting. I've got a maths degree and you want me to put it into a calculator? Yes, because it's quicker. I
think I agree. And my kind of counter argument to that person, and I do get what they're saying there, I just don't think they're looking at it from the right perspective. I think they're not realizing that the reason people are using AI is to save time, not because we can't write. That's the wrong thing there. Because if that's what they thought, I would say to them, cool, I hope you've never downloaded a PowerPoint from Twinkle. I hope you've literally never taken a lesson slides from anybody else, because it's insulting to think that you couldn't have made them yourself. It's like, well, of course I can make them myself, but I don't want to sit there for 3 hours and make slides about Charles Darwin when there's some already made. I'm just going to grab them and edit the bits I need. Exactly the same process as what I think we should do with these reports. I'm going to get the bulk of it done to save my time, and I'm going to edit things in. Right, Dylan, are you ready to be triggered?
I'm ready. I'm ready to be not triggered. No, I'm not, because I'm calm and I'm a changed man. This it's called the Balance Podcast with Dylan and Hayden. So let's
By triggered, okay, I'll change it up. By triggered, I meant ready to be triggered into a conversation, not triggered mad, not triggered mad.
I love debating things, and I think I'm very black and white sometimes, and I think sometimes I rub people up the wrong way. I'm not trying to. I would be happy for someone to be as blunt back to me. I'm just very interested.
So. This was someone's comment,
but don't question me ever.
You heard it here first. This was someone's comment, and it was the first one that made me, for a moment, go, "Ooh!" But then I did have a thought myself. But I reckon you will have some interesting thoughts on this. Someone said, "I'm going to skip kind of the gunk really and get to the point." They just said, "Would you be happy for the report to be signed off with your name and also augmented by AI or written with the assistance of AI? Would you be happy for that to be at the bottom of the report?" And then their point was, if you wouldn't, then shouldn't that be a cause for for concern? Shouldn't that be a reason that you deep down it's not right to be using AI?
I think that's only a concern for someone who cares about this kind of thing. I think that's a concern for someone who is actively against AI. I don't think that's like a moral level for everyone on the planet. Like, do we need to know if something wasn't completely human made every single opportunity that we have? I don't think we do. When we submit our accounts to the government, do we have to put augmented by QuickBooks at the bottom? I mean, maybe we do. I don't think we do though. I don't think no one cares, because they've just been, we've signed them off. Okay, cool. The computer helped us on this process. The thesaurus on Word helped me to write my book. The grammar check on Grammarly helped me to make sure my essay was written, succinctly. I wrote it off at the end though, and I said, cool, whatever this is, yep, I'm going to put my name to that because I accept everything that's been written. Do you think that all politicians write their own speeches? Imagine a really powerful speech that their teams put together for them, that they've signed off because it's everything they agree with. They deliver it, it's amazing, the crowd are cheering, and at the end, brought to you by, and then put 15 names of people who wrote it. I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that's like the winning argument that maybe it's being described as. And as a point to begin with, if someone was insistent that I put what helped me write it, then I'd put it on there. Like, I'm not even against that.
Yeah. That's fair enough. I think it's a really loaded question. I think it's one of those very cleverly crafted questions that is just completely and utterly irrelevant. And I was trying to think of like some other examples of the same sort of thing and analogies of the same thing. And it's like, it's literally the same to me as someone saying, "Oh, if you taught a lesson and it wasn't planned by you, would you be happy to go outside at the end of the day, tap it all of the parents on the head and tell them this lesson wasn't planned by me?" It's like, well, of course I wouldn't. Of course I wouldn't want to do that. But that's not why I don't think I should use the lessons. That's just an irrelevant thing. Like, of course that's embarrassing. Because on the reports, I was never putting who did or didn't write it anyway. So why would I do this extra thing anyway? Of course I don't want to put that on there.
This is exactly what I meant by I said I think it's only relevant for people who don't like AI, that would think that that's a thing to ask. Because I'd be very interested. Maybe they have this kind of thing for everything. Maybe they do every lesson say, this lesson was brought to you by Twinkle. I didn't handcraft this lesson, but I looked at it and I accepted that it was good for what I want to deliver today, and then I delivered it. I just don't think it's a fair question to ask someone, would you do this? Well, the answer is yes. I mean, I would tell a parent that I got a lesson off the internet if you really wanted me to.
Yeah.
But what's the point?
Yeah. But all it does is open them up to an interpretation of the thing that you're telling them that might be wrong. And that's the problem.
That's so true.
The only reason I wouldn't actually like to tell a parent, "Oh, I got this from Twinkle," is because they might then come to a conclusion that for some reason that was a terrible thing. And then it's just open up a can of worms that I don't want to get into. And it's the same with this report thing. AI is really new right now, and quite clearly it's a bit controversial. And even more clearly, people don't understand how it works. That head teacher, going back to that original post that says it's immoral and ethically wrong to use it. It's like, do they know it's just a language model and all it's doing is just speeding up you writing a paragraph? Like, do they understand that? Because if they did, I don't think they'd have that opinion. So clearly they don't understand it. So I don't want to tell parents. I wouldn't want to tell parents that it was supported by AI, because there'll probably be some parents that don't understand what AI is and think it's a terrible thing for me to do. And then I've got to explain to them all of this. Listen to the podcast.
This is great. Now we're just sending this link. But equally, I must say, I do understand it, because there are, like I said at the start, in general with AI, there are huge red flags at the minute of, the people who literally developed it saying, it could be a harm to humanity in the long run. And to those people, I just say, well, if it's going to kill us, at least it could do my reports first.
Exactly. God's sake. We nearly had a very serious conversation.
I have got a question, though. I'm going to continue this for a second, because...
Go on.
Pardon?
I said, go on.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for your permission. So my question is this, because this is where I think, we're presenting ourselves here as the voices of reason. But I do think maybe I am too far on the other end of this spectrum. And this question will kind of expose that. Do you think that if given adequate time to fully write the reports, so that you spend no extra time whatsoever doing them, but the caveat was you have to write them bespokely, individually from scratch for every single child, but you're given every single minute you need to do that. So there's no loss of time there. Mm-hmm. Would you still rather do it with AI?
Oh, that's so tricky. Because what you're doing to me right here now is basically trying to make me weigh up the pros and cons of AI in my head, really. Because part of me, right, I'm going to say both answers. I'm going to cop out here a little bit. Part of me is saying no, as in, I can't remember what the question was now. So what no means.
The question was, would you still want to use AI?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Given that situation of time's not a factor now, it's not stress teachers like, I can't do it in my own time. Time's not a factor. Would you still want to do it with AI?
I'm going to do it really quickly. I'll say no first, because I think if I had all the time, then I probably am going to create what that person that was talking to me was talking about, which is a beautifully personal comment that maybe parents will appreciate a bit more than anything I could have ever created with AI, even if I just edited a few in. If I did the whole thing myself, it really, truly is a complete 100% personal reflection from me, from my brain, my writing style to that parent about their child. I think that's great. And I think there is something lovely about that. And I don't think she's wrong in saying that that is an amazing thing to do for parents. The other part of me still, though, it's still, and I think, AI has still got a place here, because it's still a really good way of mixing up the way you write things, because whether you like to think it or not, you're going to write the same sort of stuff. And it's a really long process. It's very, very exhausting writing from scratch. Do you think so?
It's boring after a while, because I'm as enthusiastic as you, and I really truly am about writing a really nice report for these kids, because I love them and spend so much time with them. I just think that can be achieved with AI. And what I mean is, when I'm writing it for hours on end, after 4 hours, I lose that buzz, and I know my reports are getting worse because I'm knackered, and I'm like, oh God, I'm sorry, kid. Like, this is going to be a very generic one, because I just don't have the energy to put that mind space in. I think AI solves that and makes it better. Like, that's the reason I'm very passionate about AI. I think, like you, that the reports are better for everyone. The second half of the register aren't getting a raw deal anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to say right now, and I know we talked about it between us when I was actually writing my reports. And at the time, I remember saying to you, I don't think they're quite as good as if I had written them completely myself. But I've changed my mind, because since then, what I've done is I've gone back in and I've just read through them again, and I've actually just edited a couple of little things, because I felt bad that there maybe wasn't enough anecdotes and enough like actual personal stories in. And I've realized that at the end of this, not only are they considerably better than any report I've ever written before, completely and utterly unique for every single child, they also, it took me less than half the time that I've ever spent writing reports, even including that extra me going back in and editing in some stories. And it's like, okay, they've actually ended up being, I'm a complete advocate now for doing this. I'm actually probably going to do this every single year, because they're literally better than any report I've ever written. And let's be honest, I'm going to be honest now, because this is the time to out myself and every other teacher, is that I don't think there are many teachers who can honestly put their hand on their heart and say they open up a brand new Word document every single year from scratch and write every single comment. No way. Okay, I'm calling you out right now. No, you don't. No, you don't. You open up last year's, and you match up some kids that are similar, if you can. You open up the year before, and you get your comment bank that you used, that you made one year because you were trying to save yourself some time, and you've written 5 different comments for RE, and you copy one in and you change the name. You know, people do that. They just do. I've done it loads of times. Because you haven't. You're perfect. Because it's impossible. It is just impossible.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we don't live in that perfect world that you're talking about. We don't have all the time in the world to do it. We have our half-term break to do it. So it's got to get done one way or another. So there we are.
Brilliant. I love that. Love that chat. And as always, we're right. Right, okay, listen. That was a joke, a little quip at the end. I know we're not always right. I get it. Okay. But that was a great chat. I really loved that because, you know, what we always do, Hayden, we kind of go down that rabbit hole, don't we, of thinking, well, this is obviously the correct answer, and just opening up those views from what other people have said and, you know, slowly dismantling them and proving them wrong. It feels good.
Do you know what, Dylan? I just realized I spoke a lot for once. It wasn't you dominating the conversation. I never really asked you for your kind of final opinion on it. So what is your kind of... What's your takeaway point from this chat? What do you think about AI reports?
I will just firstly say, and I think, you know, I said last week, I've got a few comments that I just, you know, talk over you, interrupt you. But here's the thing.
I'm always
better
right.
than him.
I knew you were going to say something rubbish.
No, the point is, and I want people to know this because it is the way it's been, because Hayden specifically, when we started this podcast, said to me, well, you're in charge, pal. You lead it. You lead this podcast. So I'm usually one who's trying to push us on to other stuff. And you know, and I love the sound of my own voice, a bit like what I'm doing now. So the point I'm going to make is this was the first ever podcast where I hadn't prepared anything. I had prepared nothing. I've usually got a document up. If you watch the video, you'll sometimes see my eyes scanning backwards and forwards because I'm usually, you know, reading something or trying to get some information because I know what the next point's going to be or where we're trying to structure this conversation. And Hayden's just here for the ride. But I feel like I was here for the ride today. I quite enjoyed that.
I quite enjoyed it as well. It was the first taste of power I've got in our relationship. So it was nice.
Yeah. Okay, stop talking. We're going to wrap it up there. But just a quick one from us, guys. We had our biggest ever week of listeners, thanks to Sophie and her influence and her amazing input. So we want to keep it growing. And the best way for you to help us do that and the best way for you to help us get more guests in the future is ratings. Give us some ratings on Spotify. When people see that number go up, they think we're more credible. They might not even listen and realize that we have no idea what we're talking about, but they see that number and they're like, oh, okay. They've had some guests. They've got some ratings. Follow us on Spotify, guys. We are edging towards 100 followers on Spotify, which is just mad when you think about it.
To be honest with you, Dylan, do you know what? To be honest with you, Dylan, I think it's just rubbish. I think we're going to get guests anyway, and we're just going to carry on doing it. So if you don't really fancy it, don't bother rating it.
Okay, this is what happens, ladies and gentlemen. This is what happens when Hayden's in charge of a podcast episode. Yeah. So let us know down below in the poll. One of us is going to get rinsed, I think. Who do you prefer to be in charge of the podcast? Is it when I'm in charge or when Hayden's in charge? Nice. Let's open ourselves up there. Okay, Hayden, it's your go to sign us off, I suppose. Let's see how well you do.
Okay, cheers, guys. Right, ready? Thank you.
Oh my goodness me. Jesus Christ. Right, bye. See you later, guys. See you next week.
Bye, everyone.
No, I'm finishing. Bye, guys.
See you later.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Episode 19 next week. Tune in with your friends.
It's coming, baby. We're going to see you soon. And it's from Hayden and it's from Dylan.
Plus the guest we've got next week. See ya.
Bye.